Many times after a person has done a lot of inner work and have made great strides emotionally and spiritually on the inside, they'll develop unexpected and sudden intolerances to key aspects of their lives. Very similar to if you develop a sudden allergy to a food or a fabric softener, you might experience that same phenomenon with a career, with your living situation, with a person, with your day-to-day flow, your habits, your behaviors. And this can oftentimes bring up a lot of emotion and can be misinterpreted as an indicator of regression, slipping backwards spiritually, when the truth is, you've already done the work. You've already made the change on the inside. You're ready and ripe for a major life upgrade, a huge advancement, a higher version of whatever things you're experiencing this dissonance with. And that's exactly what this video is about. Many times after a major spiritual upgrade, a person will develop one or up to four of the following intolerances I'm going to talk in detail about in this video, so that you know what's really going on, so that you can allow yourself to receive the fruits of the labor you've already done. The first one has to do with your environment, your immediate surroundings, where you live, your community, your neighborhood, your house. You might find that all of a sudden, out of the blue, it's not a match. And you know what I mean by that being not a match if you're experiencing it. It's like there's a dissonance, like you don't belong here any longer. You feel out of place. You experience more problems, more resistance, and just a greater awareness of the parts of your environment that don't resonate with you, even if they make sense on paper. Maybe where you live is a place you've always wanted to live, and for a long time it felt great. It felt appropriate. But now that you've changed, it no longer does. Your being has upgraded itself and is ready for a better environment. This happened to me many years ago when living in Florida. After my spiritual awakening, my family and I, we moved from Michigan down to South Florida, and it was just so synchronistic how we ended up there. And for a time, it was literally like a dream come true. Everything was perfect. Like all of the boxes I wanted to check in terms of like where I wanted to live and the types of things I wanted to be there and experience. It was all perfect. It was even beyond I could have even hoped and dreamt of. But then all of a sudden, one day, about 9 months into it, I was going for a walk, as I had done many times, around my neighborhood, which I once really loved and resonated with. And I just noticed that it felt weird. It felt off. It felt dark. It felt heavy. I didn't understand why, because nothing stood out to me as the reason of my feelings of general dissonance with this environment that was so fitting. And I tried to kind of outrun it. I tried to shake it off. So I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't like this funny feeling. And I went towards the water. We lived near the water. I went to this place called the Intercoastal, which is like a little like waterway that fed into the main Atlantic Ocean. And it was a place I've gone to many times for peace and solitude and just to be by the water. There was this quiet little bridge. So I made my way towards this little bridge. And as I was approaching the bridge, I could already hear this big, like, construction boat, this like big hunk of ugly rusted metal trudging its way down the waterway, huge, giving off this black smoke. And it was very synchronistic. It was like my environment was saying, you can't even find peace here. Even this place is no longer a fit. And it wasn't just that day. Things can happen that we don't understand, but that general dissonance never went away and only increased. And it started to manifest in my home. I remember the lights started doing this funny thing where they would just not work randomly, and other times they would kind of all flick on at once. There was some kind of electrical malfunction that was happening. The TV stopped working, the dishwasher stopped working. Pretty much the house started falling apart. It felt as if my environment had turned on me somehow, and I know that's crazy, but that was like my actual experience, and I tried to ignore it for the longest time because, of course, it's kind of a silly thing to think would happen, but it never ceased. It only increased. This dissonance, the problems, the weird little ironies and hiccups just kept compounding. And it wasn't just me, it was my wife. She also felt it. And eventually we just sort of had to admit what we kind of knew all along, which was we got to get out of here. We don't belong here. We don't know why we don't belong here, but we know we don't belong here. And I remember we even like cut out of our lease early because it just felt so uncomfortable, so unnerving, like we were walking on eggshells, waiting for the next shoe to drop, pretty much until the time we left. And when we left, it went away. We found ourselves in our next chapter. We went back to Michigan, ironically, a place that we had the same experience, which drew us to Florida, but we ended up back there because we had some unfinished business. And what I've learned, for one, I've gone through this many times before, and maybe you have as well, is that as we grow, as we change, as we heal, as we confront more and more of our unconscious, and as we learn these kind of soul lessons and get what we need out of a typical experience, we start kind of going through the various phases of life faster. And therefore, oftentimes seekers will find that they need to kind of constantly, make sure their life situation is reciprocating and in harmony with who they're continually growing into. And this might not require you to move. You may never experience this. You might be exactly where your soul is meant to be for the rest of your life. But many of us do. Many of us do experience this. And it's a very bizarre thing. And I can understand why a lot of people would question it and even consider the possibility of moving because all of a sudden the vibe is off. It's kind of a thing that it's kind of hard to take seriously. But even back then, when it was like new to me, intuitively, I knew that was what was happening. I knew it. And you might know it as well. And what you also might sense is that you're not going to really thrive the way you're able to until you find a location, a house, whatever, that is a match for you. And a lot of times that place, that house, that environment, on paper, it might not even make sense. But it's not about the externals. It's about where you belong at that point in your journey, and your soul, your body, your nervous system even, it'll tell you whether you belong there or you don't. It's very obvious when you don't belong, when it's way past due that you should have moved on. You'll feel uncomfortable. It'll feel heavy. You'll find that it's almost impossible to stay balanced and stay in tune with yourself. Like your environment is too much of an influence, and your peace of mind is almost impossible to really maintain. And problems can stem from this dissonance. And then conversely, when you find a place that is right for you, it's the polar opposite of that. You feel, instead of constricted, like the walls of your life are closing in, you feel expansive. You feel amazing. You feel light. The creative ideas flow. Your day-to-day mundane experiences of life, they come more naturally and synchronistically. You see the people you're meant to see. You hear the things you're meant to hear. Your environment can nourish you and support you. And it'll be obvious on paper, and it'll be obvious in how it makes you feel. The second very common intolerance can happen with another key pillar of a person's life, and that is with their career. If you think about it, we spend like half of our waking life, roughly, most of us, at a career, at a building, in another environment outside of our home. And it's no wonder that when we change dramatically on the inside, which many of you are and have been, that is going to quickly become something you outgrow. The more you heal, the more space you create within yourself, the more connected you become to the other parts of yourself that you were previously unaware of, your hidden talents, your secret passions, your dreams, your purpose. And once that becomes available in your conscious awareness, and then you realize that none of those yearnings are going to be fulfilled in this vocation of yours, quickly that career that may have once been appropriate, resonant, fulfilling, exciting, stimulating in a good way, all of a sudden is heavy, restrictive. You feel restricted, like you have more to offer, and you know that now, but you know you can't. You're confined to this framework that just feels limiting. So your soul is constantly being like stifled, which will drain your energy. It'll make you depressed. It can give you anxiety. It can have all these other like very common human negative side effects. And the core component here is the career. And that, of course, like your living situation, is no easy thing to contend with. Once again, you might find yourself wondering, am I seriously considering changing my career or quitting my job because the vibe is off, because I intuitively feel this is not a match for me any longer? And yet your intuition, as it always is spot on. And the good news is, even if you feel like this is all there is, like you can't think of yet what else might be out there, it doesn't mean there isn't something out there. And this dissonance will usually come around the time when you're bound to soon find it. And oftentimes it will come in direct proportion that you can admit this to yourself. That's the hard part. I've been in that spot many times where I held on to a career because I was afraid of not knowing what was next. And that's understandable. We have real world responsibilities. I have children, I have mouths to feed. And I can't just be going back to the drawing board and figuring out what I want to do with my life when I have bills coming in each and every week, each and every month, just like you. But I want to make this video to tell you that I've been through this transition many times. I've seen many other people go through it, and there's a fairly predictable arc to it. As what I described begins to happen, what it means is there is, in fact, something better for you, even if you don't know what it is. And a lot of times that thing is not just a little bit better, it's way better in ways you're not even like asking for, but it is, because that's how much growth you've done. I remember for years, I was a one-on-one coach, and I would work with people from my YouTube channel, and it was awesome. I used to literally go to the beach before we did things on Zoom, and I would talk to people from all over the world, all cool people who were going through a spiritual awakening, and they saw me as an authority figure, and I was able to guide them, and it was very appropriate, and it was very rewarding, and I got to meet and like communicate with so many interesting people, and I got to do it on my own time, my own schedule at the beach. I would do most of my calls, and it was like so perfect. And then after a while, it stopped feeling so perfect. It started to feel boring, unfulfilling. I would dread having to go to the beach and talk to these people. And I would ask myself, why? Are you just like being ungrateful, man? You just need to wake up and smell the roses. Your life is good. Why would you be like this? And that's what I thought. Maybe I just need to change my perspective and cultivate more gratitude. But that dissonance never went away. It only grew. And eventually I was just like going through the motions. But I was afraid. Like I didn't know what else to do. That was like what I did, and that's how I supported my family. So I kept doing it, obviously. It was my responsibility. And I justified it. I said, well, I'm helping these people. They're getting something out of it. But deep down, I knew this was bound to end sooner rather than later. But that thought terrified me. And then one day, I was on a call And after about 20, 30 minutes, the person I was talking to, they said to me, Vic, I don't even think you know who I am. I don't even think you know my name. And they were right, because I was like checked out. It was something that was so, for whatever reason, so like just not in alignment. I literally couldn't do it in the way I once did. And thankfully, that one phone call woke me up and I realized it's not even right to do this anymore. And I finally, after a lot of resistance, just stopped taking on coaching clients, still not knowing what was to come. And as the people I worked with were working with me on like a 3 or a 6 month commitment. So naturally, my existing clients started to kind of fall off. And with it, my income began to drop. And I got to this point where it was around the holiday season where I went and purchased a new couch for our house. And I got back home, and for whatever reason, I looked at my bank account and I saw that I bought a couch with money I didn't have. Basically, my bank account was like in the red. I had to call up the place right then and there and ask if I could return it. And I thought to myself, anytime, anytime, God, anytime, Spirit. And then what happened? An idea came. A new, inspired idea came out of nowhere. And it was to run retreats. I was in my backyard one night after drinking ayahuasca down the road, believe it or not, in Las Vegas. And I was sitting in my backyard, still kind of like in that afterglow. And I thought to myself, this would be a badass environment for for a retreat. It just popped in my head because I just sort of returned from a retreat. So it was fresh in my mind. And I thought, this would be cool. What if I ran retreats? And then that thought led to like how exciting that would be. And it just started, all the dots began connecting. I could work with people, I could help people, but in a more efficient way, in a more, intimate way, and in a more exciting, resonant way. And my mood just expanded with excitement and anticipation for this bright future that I was unaware of until I started to trust and let go of what I knew no longer served me. And that's exactly what I did. It wasn't long after that I began running retreats right there in my house in Las Vegas. And since then I've done, I don't even know how many retreats, 20, 30, 40 retreats. And it's an amazing part of my life. It paid the bills. It was an amazing blessing from the universe. So I just share that with you in case you are in the stage that I once was, where deep down your thing is no longer a fit for you. You don't know what's next. What I'm sharing with you is to trust your intuition. Trust the timing. The mind thinks it needs to know now, because if things continue like this, it's going to be bad. Well, they're not going to continue like this because you don't know when that idea for you is going to come. That opportunity is going to come. You don't know when it's going to come. It could come literally 5 seconds from now and make all of that worry and stress completely unnecessary. I know it's hard. I'm not saying I'm a master at this, but I want to share this with you to remind you what your intuition's already telling you, which is it's safe to let go. It's wise to trust, and there's more to be revealed. Another equally significant pillar of your life that you might develop a sudden resistance to is a relationship, or relationships plural. Again, ones that once were amazing and fulfilling, and there was you were in sync. All of a sudden, it's just not the same. It's because you're not the same. And maybe they're not the same, or maybe they are the same, and either one can be a problem. Sometimes you walk through life with people for quite a while like this, and then this happens. And then when this happens, that connection, that bond is no longer there. Or maybe you see parts of this person that maybe you've known all along, but just didn't want to really acknowledge. Maybe you would only see the person's potential, who they could be if they just chose it. But that's not always how people show up. It's not always how your your common interactions go. You're not always working with someone's highest tip-top potential. They might not see what you see. And regardless, whether you agree with any of this, it'll become increasingly difficult to be in that relationship. It'll become forced. You'll find that you feel like drained afterwards. Oftentimes, you might feel that you might start picking up on their own thought patterns, and you might find that you like gossip more when you're around them, or you get kind of negative and in victim mode, and you kind of that's how you've always related, but all of a sudden that doesn't resonate with you anymore. You want to think more optimistically. You want to lean into more of a faithful way of going through life, and they're just not there yet. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment here. We're all eternal souls here. We have no idea what that soul chose to experience, what theme they came to explore, what lessons they came to learn. It's not for us to judge. But what it is our responsibility to do is to know that we deserve happiness and harmony within our relationships. And if we're not getting it, it's likely not going to just resolve itself on its own. And it can be hard. There can be a variety of reasons that we're bound to this particular person. But it can be an act of courage. It can be a major breakthrough to really know that you deserve better if that's the case. I used to have this client went back a long time ago when I was a fitness trainer. And she was always a good client in terms of she would work out hard. I used to go to her house and train her for years. And she was always paid on time, and it was like a nice, predictable kind of source of income for me. But frequently, she would like belittle me, I would say. She was someone who would be very like unpredictable in how they were that day. And there'd be times where she would be really cool with me and like warm. And then naturally my kind of guard would come down, and then she'd sting me almost like a scorpion, just out of the blue, with this like undermining comment. And every time I would freeze. I would not speak up for myself. And I would justify it because, oh, they're the client. I can't tell them off, yada, yada. But deep down, I was just caught off guard and afraid. And I'd go home and I'd think about it all night. I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this person, what I should have said, how dare they. And yet, I would go back and train them week after week after week, month after month, year after year, complaining, wondering why it's happening, thinking I need to evolve, I need to become more impervious to what they have going on, when all I needed to do was decide that I'm not going to subject myself to this any longer. For a while, it was tolerable, but my self-awareness as it grew and my ability to really love myself grew, all of a sudden it became intolerable. There was a time where that was normal. That was something that had always happened, but I never thought anything of it. It was never like staring me in the face that this is a problem that I need to solve. But eventually I did. Eventually I just stopped going there. And that was the move for me at the time. It was an opportunity for me to set that boundary. Now, for you, it might be completely different. Relationships are very complex. I don't pretend to think that this story is going to tell you the exact to-do steps for you, but nonetheless, as you change, as you grow, you might find that there are relationships that you're becoming literally intolerant of, and then oftentimes it's up to you to speak up, set the boundary, create space, whatever. And then finally, your day-to-day habits sometimes need a little fine-tuning. The food you're eating, just the way you spend your time, the amount of quiet time you either don't give or give yourself. Again, for a while, you might have been fine. But as you grow, you'll start to notice certain aspects of your day-to-day routine that are like a bottleneck in your ability to be happy and be clear and sort of maintain this beautiful higher vibe state that you've gained access to. It can be anything, but luckily it'll stand out to you. This happened to me a few years ago with alcohol. I was never really a big drinker, but I would really enjoy when I would go out to dinner having like a cocktail or a glass of wine or both sometimes. I usually have like 2 drinks. And it was nice. I was like conditioned to have it, you know. I even missed it sometimes. It's very nice to roll up there and you get like a nice glass of wine and all of a sudden you start feeling good and the conversation starts becoming more fluid and you got that warm feeling in your belly. I didn't judge it. It was something I had just done. I don't regret it or feel guilty about it. But there came a point where that same experience started to do more harm than good. I got to a point where I wasn't even getting a buzz. I was just feeling sick and like almost hungover from the moment I began drinking. And it just became this natural falling away based upon kind of the commonsensical conclusion that this doesn't feel good any longer. You might experience that with certain foods you're eating. In fact, when you go through a spiritual awakening and a vibrational shift, your diet might fluctuate a lot, actually, kind of back and forth sometimes. You might find there's times where you just can't tolerate meat, for example, or any animal products, and you go like you become like a strict vegan for a time. And then many times those vegans will start incorporating animal food into their diet again for other reasons. And it's because their body's wanting the grounding. Maybe. I'm not trying to impose anything on you. It's just what I've observed in myself and others. But it's important to kind of stay fluid and not necessarily pitch your tent, as David Icke says, and says, this is who I am. This is how I eat. This is my habit. This is my routine. Maybe even like, for example, for me, there was a time when I stopped doing yoga. Like yoga, most of us, I think, can agree is like good for you. It makes you flexible. It kind of connects you to your spirit. Nothing wrong with yoga. I love it. But there was a particular time in my awakening where I had a lot of active Kundalini energy and even a little bit of yoga would take what was already kind of a bombardment of psychic energy and increase it. And it became like unbalanced. I became unbalanced and just like it just had like a negative reaction. It was putting more energy into my body than I needed at the time. So I stopped doing yoga. And now I do yoga again. It's fine. The point is, it's good to be fluid with these various things and to know there's a time and there's a season for everything. And luckily, your body doesn't lie. If something's working for you, you'll feel it. It's super obvious. If you feel great from yoga, then regardless of what I or anyone says, do yoga. If it makes you feel worse, then even though the books are saying you should do it, you got to honor your own experience here. But the point is, you're changing. Whether you understand it or not, whether your friends and your family and your coworkers get it or not, it doesn't matter. You know it. You've known it this entire time. And as you change in this new accelerated vibrational, fundamental, core level way, there will oftentimes be adjustments you need to make. And you'll find that you have to adjust a lot more than you would probably prefer. You might feel like your life is always changing. You're never quite settled. And yet that's because you're growing so well. You're doing such a good job with the shadow work. That might be the theme you came to explore, to really press the boundaries and see how elevated can you become in this world. Not an easy environment, the world we live in, to raise one's frequency, and yet you're doing it. And it can be a lot more pleasant than it might be. What causes us the problems most of the time is our need to know, our need to understand, our need to figure it out, and our concepts, our beliefs, our mental conditioning. But your spirit, it operates on a higher level. Doesn't need a lot of that stuff. And it's very simple. You can navigate these changes and adjustments and aversions with your own simple ability to feel what feels good, what resonates, what feels light and free, and part of you, and what feels heavy, constrictive, what brings you down. Doesn't matter what it is. My martial arts instructor always says, sometimes the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. And sometimes the wrong thing at the right time is the right thing. And only you can know that. I can't tell you that. No one can tell you. Your body will tell you. And I wanted to share this video for one sole purpose, to encourage you to follow that simple, intuitive awareness that can guide you through all of this. Because when you make the adjustments, when you allow yourself to let go and allow yourself to be in the unknown and trust, you'll always receive what you need, that next step, that next idea, that next opportunity. You can flow through life. You can more gracefully progress through these various stages of healing and transformation, and your life can become better and better and better and better and better, faster and faster and faster. You have that ability already. I just want to remind you to use it.